Hi, Simon here. I run Noise Solution.
Transcribed and flagged to senior leadership.
Noise Solution is a customer of Salesforce. They're a social impact organization. So they use natural language processing, yes, and they use convolutional neural networks. And then I'll spend about 5 minutes explaining what we've done for them using generative AI.
Welcome to AI Force, your source for Salesforce AI news and insights. I'm Mark Good, and today we are talking with Damian Ribbons, the Operations Director at Noise Solution. Noise Solution is a nonprofit changing lives with music through music mentoring programs. We're also joined by Mark Hartnady, the CTO at VRP Consulting, who has helped Noise Solution make a bigger impact with AI solutions, which is what you are all here for. If you're streaming from X, YouTube, LinkedIn, or Spotify, you'll need to make your way over to aiforcetraining.com/live to get access to all the AI resources that we talk about today, going through the presentations. So just go ahead and head over there now. So Damian and Mark, really glad to talk to you both. Your AI story is so compelling that I really felt the need to share it with all the AI Force community. Damian, let's go ahead and kick off with you and Noise Solution. So just go ahead and give us an introduction of yourself and Noise Solution and tell us what it's all about.
Sure. So my name's Damian. I'm the Operations Director for Noise Solution. We are a social purpose organisation based in the east of England. And we want to contribute to a society where everybody means something and they know it. And we do that through pairing youth at risk with musicians and essentially making beepy noises with kids. So using lots of digital music making tools. And what we're trying to do is make young people feel good at something. So these are young people that are surrounded by conversations where the subtext is they're failing at something, failing at school, failing with their mental health, those kinds of things. We put them in control of that process. So there's no censoring of what they make. There's no curriculum. There are no learning goals. We make everything from grime music, drill music, acoustic singer-songwriting, Dolly Parton covers. Like the type of music we make is irrelevant. The point is that the young person is in control of doing that. And then we use individual, secure, private, essentially social media feeds to capture moments of success and to share those moments with people that are important to the young person. So family, teacher, social worker, mental health worker, that kind of thing. By lining those three elements of autonomy, competence, and relatedness up, we are creating conditions where young people can start to feel better about themselves, can start to motivate themselves, and can build and rebuild relationships with people around them.
It's such a fascinating way to use music and community to make a social impact that is truly changing young people's lives. I mean, I read through your Salesforce article where Salesforce covered your story and a lot of details about it. It's such a great story. One of the things that stood out to me was the independent study that reported a 334% ROI. So for every £1 provided by donors, you're actually saving families and local services at least 3.34 pounds, preventing things like admission to mental health facilities. And I think with numbers like that, the staggering impact is it hits you in the face. And I think it's a really great story of what you guys are doing. It's incredible. And you use AI as well, right? I mean, you're taking advantage of the latest technology to do it.
Yeah, sure. So we, as a social purpose organization, we're really interested and passionate in understanding what our social impact is. And we try and create this impact 360 picture. And AI helps us to do that. So the financial savings data is one part of that picture. And it's an interesting part, but it's it's kind of a misnomer in a sense, because these aren't always direct savings to direct people's budgets, right? They're kind of societal savings to provide an overview and insight into the kind of work that we're doing. We measure impact on young people through a validated NHS tool. So young people complete the SwemWeb's shortened Warwick-Edinburgh mental wellbeing scale 7-item questionnaire at the start of their time with us, at the end of their time with us, and we measure those the distance traveled at population levels. So we're able to, using the Salesforce ecosystem, we're able to drill down into those data, look at distance traveled for young women, young men, young people aged 16 to 24, young people in Cambridgeshire, a whole combination of different demographics to start to understand where we're the most impactful. So a couple of really interesting insights. We are much less impactful for young people under 11 years old. So we don't work with those young people anymore. There are other services that are better set up to serve that need. But interestingly, we are twice as impactful with young women as we are with young men. And as an organization that's perceived as working with young men in hoodies making drill music, we do lots of that. But also we're twice as impactful with young women, which enables us to target our messaging to solve specific societal problems. So we're able to go to a commissioner and say, we know we can have impact with this particular population that you've got a concern about, and we can start to have data-led, impact-driven conversations. That's
data.
It's all very interesting, but I think that the kind of flip in our thinking was moving from a space where we're using things like SwemWebs, we're using things like the return on investment studies to look for things in our data. And what we've started to move towards now is listening to what our data is telling us. So kind of removing some of those parameters, still providing handrails, but removing some of those parameters to get a more nuanced understanding of what people are telling us. So at the end of every session, young person and musician record a short conversational video. And I know Mark's going to go through this and do it live, I think. But those videos are full of impact gold dust. They're full of people telling us what they actually think, right? They're not a feedback form. They're not smiley faces from 1 to 10. These are real people's thoughts about real stuff that's just happened. The AI, generative AI, LLMs allows us to take a macro view of all of those reflections in a way that as an individual, as a team, we just wouldn't be able to do. We just don't have the physical capacity. We don't have the mental capacity. We're not able to stand above those data and take the view across the whole piece. So it's unlocked massive potential from an impact perspective for us.
Yeah, that gold dust underneath that you're mining out using AI. I mean, that's the inspiration I'm looking to bring to everyone who's watching today. Everybody has these sort of transcripts or these key elements of data, oftentimes unstructured, that are underlying within their organization. And what AI allows us to do now is unlock that gold dust and peer into it and take advantage of the insights that we can gain from it to just make a bigger impact. And you guys have designed your platform around people and performing evaluations using AI. And so you've positioned yourself to do just that. And so you're sort of this shining example of what nonprofits can do with AI. So you alluded to it. Mark's going to come on in just a second here and take a deep dive into exactly what's going on and sort of do a demo for us and show off what's happening. But I just love your story and how you're taking, what sometimes is a very controversial topic of AI and implementation of AI and turning it into gold and exploring it and using it in ways to help people, where sometimes people often discuss AI as, sort of maybe potentially a negative thing for us. But I mean, you're implementing it. You've got real data showing how it's helping you make a better impact. And so I just love that story. Yeah, I'd love to, unless you have any final thoughts here, I'd love to switch over to Mark and bring him on and start talking about what they've done through VRP Consulting.
I think just to frame it as, you could get a feedback form from everybody you've ever worked with, and it would give you some insight. But if you were able to have a conversation with every single one of those people, the insights you would get would be multiplied an infinite number of times. And that's what we've done. That's what we're now doing.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, and AI is what helps you unlock and do that. Great. Yeah, let's go ahead and bring on Mark Hartnady from VRP Consulting into the conversation here. Mark, you've prepared to share with everyone the sort of the AI journey that you've been on with Noise Solution. Let's go ahead and hand it off to you. And if you'll just go ahead and introduce yourself as well and let us know a little bit about VRP Consulting and just let everybody know what you're going to share this morning.
Sure. Thanks, Mark. And thanks for having me on. I've got a couple of slides here. I'll share my screen. Just let me know if that's coming through.
You're on.
Is that okay?
Yeah, you're on.
All right. So just a quick plug for VRP Consulting. So who are we? We're a Salesforce partner. We have been for the better part of 13 years. We're also one of a handful of accredited product development outsourcers. So we build apps that go on the App Exchange for customers, for ISVs. And we're a consulting partner. And like Noise Solution, we are addicted to winning awards. We won the 2023 Salesforce Partner Innovation Award for our work with Ukrainian Red Cross. And we've been shortlisted this year for the Digital Transformation Project of the Year, which is for the work we've been doing with the Noise Solution. So if anyone wants to know more about VRP Consulting, go to the website, or there'll be a QR code at the very end of this presentation that you can scan. A bit about myself. So as Mark mentioned, I'm the CTO of the UK and Ireland entity within the VRP group. I'm also our domain lead for DevOps and generative AI. And I've been working in the Salesforce ecosystem for 10 plus years. So I come from the era of S controls, and I've seen it all. I'm originally from South Africa. I live now in England, and really I'm an engineer at heart. I enjoy solving business problems with technology, especially when it makes impact in people's lives. So this is the agenda. Damien's already taken you through the what and the why, so the mission and the vision of what Noise Solution is. I'm going to focus now on the how. So what is it that we're actually building with them? I'm going to try to show you a live demo. If it doesn't work, sometimes these things don't work live. I've got some fallback slides that I'll come to, and I'll also show you the architecture of what we've built at a high level. And then I want to talk to you about what's next, what we're really excited about in the future. I'll then do some acknowledgements and hand it back to you, Mark, and we can do a Q&A at the end. Before I get into the demo, however, I just want to cover a few things. I've done similar talks like this in the past, and it's always the same questions I get at the end. And so some of you will have some burning questions in your minds as we're going through this, and I want to just clear the air from the outset. The first is going to be, where's Einstein? So a lot of you would have heard of Einstein GPT, Einstein Copilot. What I'm going to show you today is not embracing any of that technology, and there's a reason for that. The principal reason is timing. Okay, we started building this stuff initially in 2018 in our second iteration of work, which is what I'm going to show you today. Copilot was just in its initial stages of limited availability. We couldn't get our hands on it. So unfortunately, we've had to build everything ourselves, but needless to say, it is coming. However, we need to go through the process of configuring Data Cloud and jump through a number of hoops before we get there. More on that later, by the way. The second is on consent. So we're dealing with children here, and consent to use their information is very important. Needless to say, when you join any sort of platform or customer community, typically you'll be agreeing to some terms and conditions. Noise Solution is no different here. However, if a participant does sign up to their community, they can still opt out of having their data processed by third parties, and we will then not use any data, not pass any of their data to an LLM for processing. Okay, so really important we just get that out there. The third is on data anonymization. So we're obviously working with sensitive information. Some of these participants are sharing stories about their lives. What we are not passing to third parties, any large language model, is personally identified information. Okay, so we've built our own trust layer, And we're very excited to migrate to Copilot and make use of Salesforce's trust layer in the future, because as you can imagine, developing such a mechanism is quite intensive. The next thing is that we've done work with Noise Solution in the past. So around 2017-18 was our initial engagement, and we built a manual process for them using predictive AI. This is effectively NLP, so neural linguistic programming modules running in scripts to do very, very basic sentiment analysis on transcripts of videos. Okay, and at that time, all that really gave Noise Solution was an indication of whether a transcript was negative, neutral, or positive. Useful, but not that useful. And it was also a very manual process. What I'm going to show you today is work in progress. So this is not something we've yet gone live with. We are still very much working on it. But the previous work we've done with Noise Solution cannot hold a candle to what we're doing with them now. Okay, everything is going to be automated. We're using generative AI rather than predictive AI. And the result of that is that we're getting back much more useful, discrete values that can be reported on, show trends, show progress, show the opposite of progress in some cases. And it's on a simpler tech stack. Okay, so the cost of what we're building is reduced ultimately for Noise Solution. And then finally, results may vary. Some of you are going to be watching what I'm showing you in this demo. You're going to be thinking to yourself, I'm skeptical. And that's a good thing. Okay, this is new technology. We're working on the cutting edge of what's possible with language models. Language models, by their very nature, are probabilistic, right? What does that mean? It means every time you provide a prompt to a language model, you're not always going to get back the same result. Kind of like humans, right? If you ask me how my weekend was on a Monday, you'll get a slightly different answer if you ask me again on a Wednesday, or if someone else asks me, I might give a slightly different answer. On average, though, if we aggregate those answers, we start to see a picture trending. And that's what we've built into this new work that we've done. And then finally, we want you to be skeptical. If you are skeptical about anything we're showing you today, we don't just welcome that feedback, but we invite it. So please poke holes in anything you see today. So this is the community that Noise Solutions built. They've had it running for many, many years. When a participant logs in, this is what they see. A lot of you will be very familiar with the chatter widget. And this is where they post their content, right? So they'll see their sessions that they have booked to work with a musician. And after that session, either they or the musician on their behalf can upload some media onto their feed, okay? Now, not using the normal chatter components in Salesforce, you have the ability to upload a file, but that doesn't give you the sort of Facebook social media experience. And so Noise Solution has worked with a third party to build a component into their chatter feeds that enables their participants to upload live media. Okay, that media then gets offloaded off platform. It's not hosted on Salesforce for the simple reason that the storage is just too enormous, and I'll show you some numbers later of what that looks like. But effectively, they're giving their participants a platform to express themselves, right? So as Damien mentioned, they'll put their recordings on their feeds, and then critically, after they've had a session with the participant, they'll have what's called a reflection session. So they'll sit with the musician, and the musician will ask them to reflect on their session, tell them how it made them feel, and then at the end of that, give a rating and give a single word to describe the effect of that the session had on them. So these are some stills from a video. This is a reflection session, so you can see at the beginning here some transcript taken from a video at the beginning, and then at the end, the musician is asking the participant to score the session out of 10 and to give a word to describe the session. Okay, and this is the information that we're really interested in, because ultimately we want to take this and turn it into this. Okay, so this is a report that we've built of session analyses by participants. We can show trend analysis. We can show how an individual's sense of competence is changing over time, how their sense of autonomy is changing over time, how their sense of relatedness is changing over time. And these are the three critical elements of the theory of change that Noise Solution use in their work. So what does architecture look like? There's two parts to it. Okay, the first is a transcription service, and the second is a transcript analysis service, right? So this is really the meat and potatoes of what we're doing. This is where we get our discrete measurable data that we can build reports on. But before we can start analyzing text, we've got to transcribe that text out of the videos. So how does that work? So we start with Salesforce Experience Cloud, and that's where our participants or musicians will upload their media. Typically videos, those can be an MP4 format or MVA format, MOV format, doesn't really matter. They can do it from their phones. Some of them use recording equipment in the studio. But all of that media gets offloaded onto, at the moment, Azure file storage, but that could just as well be Amazon S3 buckets. The point being that we're talking serious quantities of data here. So these stats were taken about a week ago. So right now, there are about 15,000 files sitting on that file storage, and that's totaling about 1 terabyte. Okay, so if you put that in Salesforce, it just wouldn't work commercially, which is why it's offloaded to Azure. What happens next is there is a service running, and that could be running on Heroku, Python Anyway, AWS, doesn't really matter. Any infrastructure as a service could run this service. And what that Python script is doing is it's downloading those media one by one, sending them over to OpenAI's Whisper service to get transcribed. The text is then coming back to the server. It then gets passed back to OpenAI to get cleaned up, grammar corrected, speakers inserted, etc. And then the full transcript is passed back to Salesforce. So I can log into Salesforce, go to a session record, and I can see the full transcript of a media file right there. And that's our starting point for the next part, which is where we actually do the analysis. So video file comes in, text comes out. The next part is passing that transcript over to OpenAI with a very carefully crafted prompt designed to return back structured data. So we pass unstructured data to OpenAI and we say, hey, GPT, I want you to analyze this data for a sense of autonomy, a sense of competence. What's the most positive sentence that was said? What's the most negative sentence that was said? What did the participant rate the session out of 10, etc.? And that comes back as a JSON object, and we persist that onto a record in Salesforce. We do that multiple times, take the aggregate, and then the aggregate is what you see in the report. I'm going to pause here and hand it back to you, Mark, if you've got any questions before I actually dive into a live demo.
Yeah, one of the things you were just on it is going over the transcript multiple times. So as you're doing that, are you issuing the same prompt and taking the result and then averaging the results from the same prompt being issued over and over again? Is that what you're doing there?
That's exactly correct. Yeah. So in a few slides, actually, I'll come back to these slides. So the session object is recording the date and time, who the participant is, who the musician was. And these session analysis records are multiple iterations of an OpenAI analysis of that transcript, right? Now, in this example here, we're getting the same results back every time. Probably because in this example, I was using GPT-4, which is very powerful. But we've seen examples where we're not always getting the same score, right? And so to give a sense of validity, the theory is we run this multiple times. At the moment, we've got a cap set at 10, and then we take the average of the discrete values. There are also non-discrete values. So there are things like, there are quantitative things that we measure, things like what is the most positive sentence that was said, what is the most negative sentence said. These are things, unfortunately, we can't average. They're not measures from a data analysis perspective, a data science perspective. Nonetheless, they're still there, and they can be integrated at any time by the business if they want to.
I just think this is a really interesting approach to sort of taking the variability of an LLM response and actually turning that into some numbers that you can actually trust. And so running that iteration over and over again, and then averaging the results, and maybe even like pulling out any spikes or dips in the data. I think that's a really smart approach to taking the transcript and boiling it into actual usable numbers that you can rely on. I just think I just want to point that out for everyone. It's a really smart and unique approach.
Yeah, and if anyone's got ideas on how we can aggregate non-discrete values, we're all ears. We want to hear what ideas you've got. So let me just back up a bit. Okay, so I mentioned there's two services. There's the transcription service and there's the analysis service. The analysis service is the bit I'm going to do a live demo on Salesforce. The transcription service, I can't really show it to you any other way than sort of walking the audience through a Python script. I'm not going to run the script, it'll take forever. But just to explain at a high level, what are we doing on the Heroku server or on the Python server? We start by running a batch, and we'll sequence, we'll iterate through a number of sessions, and each iteration of that batch will come back with a session ID and a media file ID that's linked to that session ID. We get some environment variables to authenticate to Salesforce and OpenAI. We then authenticate to Salesforce. We get back a token. We can now query our media record to get a download URL. So this is the actual Azure link to download that file. We download it. We store it locally. We then authenticate to OpenAI. We prepare the input and output files. So we've got our MP4. We now prepare our MP3 and our text file. We then extract the audio from the video file. So this is where the Whisper service comes in. So we're using OpenAI already at this stage to turn an MP4 into an MP3, and then take the text, the spoken text, out of that MP3 and put it into a text file. So after that transcription is done, this is more or less what it looks like. You've got the timestamps. This is a feature of Whisper AI from OpenAI, and we've got the text. However, this is only partially useful because we don't actually know who's talking, right? So if we run some analysis on this text and say, what's the most positive sentence said, we may get a sentence uttered by the musician. And while that's interesting, it's not as interesting as the most positive thing that the participant said. So we take this text and we throw it back at OpenAI with a carefully crafted prompt, which says something like this. Your task is to analyze a transcription of two individuals sharing a dialogue. One of the individuals is a teacher and the other a participant. You are to infer based on the dialogue who is saying what and inject the speaker into each line. For example, if the lines are, did you have a good day today? Yeah, it was all right. Then you should return, teacher, did you have a good day today? Participant, yeah, it was all right. You should do this for every single line in the transcript. Plus, please correct any grammar, spelling mistakes, etc. So we get back after that a really precise, grammar-corrected, speaker-injected transcript that is infinitely more useful than what came before it. Now, this isn't always perfect, but it's better than what came before it.
Can you talk everybody a little bit through the challenge of crafting what you now have as sort of the standard sort of prompt version of the prompt that you use every time? What were the challenges in going through and iterating over the prompt to get the right prompt here?
Amazingly, when you're working with GPT-4, you can be a lot more flexible in your prompting. It's almost as if GPT-4 knows what you're trying to get at. GPT 3.5, you've got to be a bit more specific. Now we're using OpenAI here. OpenAI has a playground. If you go to playground.openai.com, you can log in with your GPT account and you can test your prompts. You can even build your own assistants by putting in what's called a system prompt, which tells GPT how to act. And so to answer your question, Mark, that's how we did this. We didn't code our way through this through the API. We used OpenAI's playground, fine-tuned the prompts, and then once we get a prompt that's working, then we come back here and we update our scripts. But yeah, it's an iterative process. But coming up with this prompt, to turn text like this into text like this took about 3 iterations. It wasn't too difficult. Okay, once we've got our script, we then pass that back to Salesforce. So I'm just going to copy this, whoops, because I haven't had time to run it, and hop back into Salesforce, and you'll see here's my session record, and I'm going to put the script in here. And now we've got what we need. Okay. So we've built two interfaces into the service. The one is manual, so a user can come here and they can click a button to get this done. Please ignore this, it's not actually doing anything. We have the model that we're using loaded from a custom metadata setting. This was a sort of prototype that we've never gotten rid of. So the first is a manual interface. We're using click a button. So there's a Lightning Web component there that's calling some Apex, which is talking to OpenAI. And the other is a batch job. So I mentioned previously that we're running this in batch. We're creating multiple session analyses records, up to 10 per session. And then we're taking the aggregate of those. Wait for that to finish. If it's going to take too long, I'll fall back on my slides, but there we go. So I can see here, a JSON object comes back, and that's our structured data. That's all Salesforce needs to transform that into a record, right? That can be reported on and aggregated. So we've got a sentiment score of 0.8, sense of relatedness. These are the discrete values I was talking about earlier. And then our quantitative values. Most positive sentence related to relatedness overall, most positive sentence about competence, most negative sentence, and so on. And you know, at the end of this, I'll hand back to Damien and Simon to comment on why these things are useful. But it's critical to have that data, right? You know, one of the key things here is that you could probably count the number of staff at Noise Solution on two hands. I mean, I don't know the exact numbers, but correct me if I'm wrong here, Damien, but you're working with sort of, you know, 400 videos a month, 700 minutes of data that a small group of people just simply cannot watch and go through every single video and report on. So we've got the AI working, you know, 24/7 doing this for them.
Yeah, correct. So we do about 450 odd hours of one-to-one mentoring a month. So yeah, like 200, 300, 400 videos, 3-4 minutes long. We'd have to watch all of them. We'd have to understand all of them. We'd have to make a subjective judgment about what we've seen. We'd have to retain all of that information, and we'd have to put all of that information back together in our heads to be able to get the macro view we were talking about earlier. Yeah, it's just not possible.
Yeah. So there's the record that gets generated. So we transform JSON and we map the values from the JSON object onto these fields, and then we roll everything up to the session object, and then that gets reported on. So come back here. I wanted to show this quickly. This isn't the actual code that we're using. This comes from a very, very old prototype from more than a year ago. But there were just two things I wanted to call out here. Okay, the first is one of the caveats I had at the beginning of this presentation was our trust layer. Okay, so Salesforce has their own trust layer with Einstein Copilot. We didn't have the luxury of access to that product at the time, so we had to build our own trust layer, right? So you can see here what we're doing is we're taking the first name from the contact and the last name, and we're tokenizing that. We're just replacing that with some text that says student first name, student last name. We trust OpenAI. I'm sure they're not going to do anything nefarious with participant data, but nonetheless, these are kids, and we can't take any risks. The second is the prompt. This isn't the prompt that we're using anymore. We have a prompt engineer at VRP that's fine-tuned this prompt over time. But the ultimate goal of this prompt is to tell GPT to act like a professional musician, therapist, and to respond with a JSON object that looks like this. And in the latest versions of GPT models, you can actually provide an input parameter to force a response to come back in JSON. So sometimes we would get responses of JSON coming back that would have commentary afterwards, or before the JSON object. So you'll see here, your response should be in JSON format only, conforming to the structure suggested above. Do not give me any commentary, etc., etc. And now we can actually pass that in as an input parameter. So we're guaranteed to always get a structured data response back. So yeah, this is an example of a report. It's just one example. You could pass this into Tableau or CRM analytics and get some more interesting views of the data. But effectively, that's it. So what's next? So I think the most obvious thing is transition to Prompt Builder. Einstein Copilot was put into general availability last month, I believe. So we're really excited to take the transcript analysis piece of this, which is all coded in Apex and whatnot, and just hand that off to Copilot, right? That's basically moving from a coded solution to a declarative solution, which is always easier to maintain on the platform. We don't have to keep these prompts in custom metadata settings. We can use everything that Copilot gives us out of the box for that. The second is something I've never even discussed with Damien or Simon. I'm talking about it now for the first time. And that's potentially to experiment with multimodal analysis. So one of the great things with GPT-4 is that it understands images, it understands audio. We don't have to necessarily only work with transcribed text. We could pass video, we could pass audio, and ask the AI to score voice tonality or body language in a video, facial expressions. I've actually done some of these tests myself with images that I found online of anonymous individuals. I blurred their faces, I put time sequence stamps on them. And I, as an individual, thought actually this individual is withdrawing from the conversation throughout the video. And I passed that to GPT to analyze, and it gave me some like really, really insightful psychoanalytic insight as to what the individual was doing. I thought their sort of body hunched over was a sign that they were withdrawing, but GPT, told to act like a professional body language expert, responded saying that, no, actually the individual is engaged. Their hands are going together, they're more focused. So even something that a layman may interpret as showing withdrawal could be interpreted as an expert as being engaged, which I found really, really interesting. The third is further testing of various models. So really cool thing about Prompt Builder, Einstein Copilot, is you can plug in your own LLM. It doesn't have to be OpenAI. It could be Claude's Anthropic. It could be Google Gemini. And we'd be really interested to see what the results of those tests are. And if it comes to it, we may need to do some fine tuning. But we're not just going to go with OpenAI just because it's the first product that was out there that we could use. The fourth is that we really want to get other nonprofits and NGOs excited about this. We want to extend the capability to them. This is something that VRP are as passionate about as Noise Solution are. So please do get in touch. Laura is our head of nonprofit in the UK. There's her email address. And again, there'll be a QR code at the end of this that you can scan to get in touch with us. And then the final one is Dreamforce 2024. We were at Dreamforce 2023. We talked about some of the previous work that we're doing. We'd love the opportunity to use this as the poster child for Einstein Copilot. So if there's anyone from Salesforce who's listening right now, let's talk afterwards. So to wrap up, just to thank and acknowledge a few people, Simon and Damien, of course, to you for giving us the opportunity to work together. And everything I've shown you today hasn't just been me. There's a whole team of people behind that. So first and foremost, Jack Ziesling, he's no longer with VRP, but he built the original prototype. Yaroslav's our current developer. Laura, I've already mentioned, is our head of nonprofit. Nuru is working in the US as a technical architect on this project. Alex is developing all the backend Heroku Python stuff. And Monica has been our prompt engineer who's been working tirelessly to perfect our prompts. And that's basically it. So Mark, I'll hand back to you now for any Q&A. And as I mentioned, if anyone wants to get in contact with Noise Solution or VRP, go ahead and scan that QR code.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, thanks for providing that for everyone so that everyone can connect. And I'll just echo your comments. If anyone from Salesforce is on, and I know you are, go ahead and reach out to Mark to sync up on how a project like this gets converted into some of the out-of-the-box Salesforce features that are sort of impending, the market rollout, Einstein Copilot, and beyond. I did want to jump back to this is a hot topic. Prompt engineering, is that was it Monica? Is that Monica's title, or is that just a skill that Monica has?
That's her name. Her name is Monica.
Well,
at VRP, I believe it is her official title. Yeah.
Prompt engineer.
Yes, she does other things, but that's her main focus. Yeah.
Well, I just think, I think it's just something that we should take a moment to sort of soak that up. Everyone that's listening, it's something we've been preaching at AI Force for a while, that the specific skill sets that you have working with language models, especially if you work with multiple language models and you know the right way to prompt and to structure prompts to get the results that you're looking for out of the LLMs. These are prompt engineers, and there's still a lot of noise in the market about whether or not that's a skill or if that's just something everybody will be doing as they're using tools like ChatGPT. But
well,
go ahead.
Mark, one of the things I've got to say is one of the reasons I really love working with Simon and Damien is that they are so open and so transparent. And what that means is that we can get a lot done quickly. Where am I going with this? A lot of the customers we work with will not let their intellectual property go anywhere near a large language model. Okay, they will not let us use GPT to help code anything, right? Damien and Simon are like, just use it, man. All that Python code that I showed you, all the Heroku backend processing, in fact, the original prototype that Jack did, most of that was built by AI. Okay, that wasn't an Apex developer sitting there. That was an Apex developer talking to GPT saying, I have an idea for a service, give me the code. Okay, it's never going to be perfect first time, but the amount of time that you save using these tools, and I know Salesforce has a product which is a plugin for VS Code that helps you write code, is just insane. I mean, that script I showed you in Python is, I put that together in a day. It's talking to Salesforce, it's talking to Whisper, it's talking to OpenAI, a day. I mean, a single day. You gave that as a traditional developer to do, it take them a week or 2 weeks. It's crazy.
Yeah, but we did a session several weeks ago now with a gentleman who is an architect, CTA, and developer, and he just sort of demoed. So if you haven't seen that yet, go back and watch it. He demoed all of the sort of tool sets that he uses today to code, and just so much faster. I mean, the iteration, the improvement and the iteration of code is just exponential since the language models have come out, and we're able to produce so much more, so much faster, and with so much better quality. But I did want to go back and just lock in, prompt engineer is now a title, not just a skill. So everyone take that away from this call for sure. You went over a lot of things in a lot of great detail. One of the things I wanted to call out for everyone is that off the Salesforce platform, taking videos and extracting the transcript and using a prompt to do that. There are a lot of organizations that have transcripts, like call recordings, available inside their org already. So just think about, I'm just talking to everyone here, just sort of think about what you have in your Salesforce org that's already available to you. And what you saw today that Mark presented, there's possibly even a smaller hurdle to take advantage of some of that data that you have. So just keep that in mind, that there's a lot of work that goes into, and Mark displayed it here, going through all of the legwork to get the final results out of that unstructured data. But you may have some unstructured data that's just begging you to go ahead and use AI to start processing it. So I just wanted to call that out for everyone here. And then also you mentioned, moving from the coded version of these solutions to the declarative versions with Copilot and beyond. I just want to emphasize the importance for everyone, for all these organizations that have data available, that haven't started using AI yet, that haven't started projects using AI yet. There are iterations that have to happen before you get to a final usable solution. And so I just urge everyone to start taking action today instead of waiting. The tool sets are developing, and if you don't go ahead and start taking action today and start building out these solutions and start that iterative process, you're going to find yourself behind other organizations as we move forward. And do you think that's the same, Mark? Do you echo those comments, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the analogy I always use is the Casio calculator. I see generative AI as like a printing press, or something as transformative as those technologies. I don't, there may be some job losses as a result of generative AI in this space, in the developer space, but I see AI being more a tool to make developers more productive, just like the calculator made us more productive, just like the printing press made us more productive. There'll be a displacement, sure, but your value as a developer or as an admin is going to be moved up the value chain, right? If you're smart about what you do and you use AI in the right way and effectively, it's only going to make you more powerful as an individual.
What do you have any tips for if I'm a Salesforce admin? So there's a lot of Salesforce admins in the audience. If I'm just a Salesforce admin and I'm just looking at AI where it is today and I'm just getting started, any like quick tips for anybody who's just getting started?
Yeah, so two. I think in the Salesforce domain specifically, Copilot was released very recently. So until about a month ago, there weren't even any trailheads. So for those of you who aren't aware, Trailhead is a learning platform. It's free. You can sign up and you can take courses online, and you can get access to a 7-day trial org where you can play around with Copilot. You can build your own prompts. You even get some test data. So if you want to get your hands on these generative tools, start with Trailhead. More fundamentally, if you want to understand more about AI and specifically generative AI and what large language models are and what transformer-based neural networks are, my friend has been YouTube, right? I'm a premium YouTube subscriber, so I don't get the ads. I pay the $11.99 a month. I find it better value than Spotify. But there's a wealth of free courses out there. So MIT does a really, really good machine learning course. It's long, but it's very structured and it's very detailed. So if you have no grounding in AI, no appreciation or background, YouTube's a great course. But then, of course, you guys, Mark, AI Force Training.
Yeah, that's right. I got to plug that, of course. And then anyone who is looking for that 7-day trial, that test or that demo org for diving into Copilot, I highly suggest that as well. And we've got a resource if you're watching from our platform right now. It will be over either that direction or that direction. I don't know which way to point, but it's over there. And if you click on the Spring 2024 AI Guide for Salesforce Professionals, you've got a ton of links in there. In there is the trial org link that you can go straight to it. Sign up for that. Go play with the new Copilot. It will be out soon, and you'll want to have some skills around that. But any final takeaways, Mark? I mean, I just want to appreciate both you at VRP Consulting and Damien over at Noise Solution for coming on today and just sort of sharing the story and sharing about the impact that AI can have on our organizations, just to try to sort of drive home the importance of digging in, and for everybody just to start building those AI solutions in their org. Just want to thank you both for coming on.
Yeah, I guess I'll just close with this. I mean, with any nascent technology, you've got to change the way you think about it. We're all sort of got our day jobs and we're in a hamster wheel sometimes, and we've got to build that report or do this or whatever. It's quite hard sometimes to sell an idea, but using videos like this webinar, distributing this to as many people as you can, getting people excited and understanding of the impact it can have, not just in nonprofit, but also in private sector as well. It can change thought patterns, especially at leadership levels or, at levels where decisions get made. So, spread the word, spread the ideas. I think that's my key takeaway.
Yeah, that's excellent. And if we'll have Damien come back on. Damien, if you have any final thoughts that you want to share with everyone before we drop?
I mean, not final thoughts so much. A final thank you to VRP for working tirelessly to make these crazy ideas a reality, and for taking our concerns around trust, around data security, around ethics seriously, and kind of helping us navigate this new emerging world, these new emerging technologies, and turning our crazy ideas into actual digital reality.
It's a fun new world, right? I mean, it feels like we're in a big sandbox and we just get to play and have some fun, and we get to get the great results from it. So yeah, I think you said it right. You know, grab a partner, grab someone who you trust, who can help you build out solutions and sort of give you the knowledge set that's needed to execute on this new AI space. I think that's right. Well, thanks so much, Damien, for joining. Mark Hartnett, thank you as well. Thanks to Noise Solution and VRP Consulting for sharing the demo today and everything that you displayed and the stories you shared. Yeah, thank you everyone for joining. Make sure you subscribe below and then register for the next event in the upcoming sessions below. And I'll see you on the next one.